I think we're live. I think
Oh
we're
my
live.
God,
Hi,
I see the
ladies.
button. Hi,
I
guys.
hit the button.
Hi,
Hi.
Welcome.
Maureen.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Hey,
Thank you so much for having me on.
thank you for coming. I'll quick read your bio and let's get started. So, for everybody who's watching us, oops, where did it go? Give Megan
Uh-oh.
a moment. The bio just left me. As
It
everybody
happened.
knows, my cell phone, everything hates me. But anyway, it's back. We are here with the lovely Maureen Dunn. She is a professional horse trainer and accomplished competitor, earning multiple regional championships in dressage and 2 national reserve championships at lower levels. Beginning her career with natural horsemanship, colt starting, and working with problem horses, Maureen developed a training philosophy rooted in building a strong foundation for competition while creating happy and willing equine athletes. She fell in love with musical freestyles early in her dressage journey and brings that same sense of creativity and harmony to every horse she trains, whether in the dressage arena, over fences, or on the cross country course. Today, Maureen works extensively with Mustangs and teaches liberty work, dressage, eventing, and natural horsemanship. Her approach emphasizes putting the horse first and nurturing partnerships built on understanding and trust. Beyond the arena, Maureen is passionate about equine nutrition, manage grazing, and sustainable land management, exploring how thoughtful stewardship can benefit both horses and the environment in a truly symbolic way. Yay! Welcome,
Yeah.
Maureen.
Thank
How did
you.
how did you find your love of horses?
Oh, I think I just came out of the womb this way. Honestly, I think the first horse I ever saw, I fell in love with, and it's just been in my head ever since, and in my heart ever since. Yeah, there's not like
Same.
a moment that I remember that it came on, and I was like, oh, now I love horses. It just felt like it was always there.
Same. I drove my parents nuts. I think probably Megan
Oh my
was the
God.
same. Wouldn't you say,
Yeah.
Megan?
Yeah. I just
Totally,
never stopped
absolutely.
asking.
Well, tell us about your first horse and did you get into a discipline? How did you decide to be a personal trainer?
Um, so I did some lessons as a youth, and never had my own horse until actually I graduated college. So I was kind of like anybody who had a horse, I'd just take them through an open field and go for a gallop. That's kind of how I was, and it wasn't until I graduated college and then I had my own money and I started working at a graphic design firm, and I started working for free on a horse farm because I was just couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I got my first horse, and it was like 3 months later that I was like, okay, I'm not a graphic designer anymore. I'm a horse trainer now. So, yeah. And that's basically what I wanted to do my whole life. So I just went for it at that moment and started studying on my own and got a job as a barn manager and just kind of really, self-taught for a long time until I found the right people to learn from.
And did you grow up in Wisconsin? What kind of
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. How
Mm-hmm.
did you find your way here?
Oh, it is actually the horse first farm, actually.
So what time
Yeah.
or what time? When did you relocate? Like how long were you in Pennsylvania? When did you decide to make
Um,
Wisconsin your home?
I moved about 14 years ago, and it was funny because Pennsylvania was like cold enough for me, and I never thought that it would go any colder, and this is about my limit. So, uh, but yeah, the Horse First Farm had an ad for a position, and Michelle Knapp. I don't know if you're familiar with Michelle Knapp. She's another local trainer, and she has her own business out with Lockie Phillips. They do emotional horsemanship, and so they're quite successful. But she worked for the Horse First at the time, and she actually hired me, and And I was just so happy because I was into natural horsemanship at the time and couldn't find like-minded people in my area. I was working for just mostly traditional people. Of course, I forgot my dog was outside, so now he's telling me that he needs to come in. Do you mind if I just 1 second, or else he's going to keep barking? Okay, sorry.
Go ahead, no problem. We'll pull her off. That's awesome. Yeah, nothing like going from a cold environment to an even colder environment, right, Megan?
I'm gonna laugh when she tells us she's moving to Alaska.
I know, right? Like, oh boy, yeah. We've had some mild winters recently. Yeah, right. We've had a few mild winters, but okay, I think I see she's back. Hang on here. There we go. We got to sandwich you in between us.
Oh, nice. I like that. I feel comfy, cozy.
We were laughing. I don't know if you heard us. We were like, oh, nothing like moving to a cold spot. And then Megan said she's waiting for you to tell us you're moving to Alaska, somewhere even colder.
Although sometimes it's warmer there.
It is actually, yeah, for sure. And they probably have more heated barns, so it would be okay-ish. For sure.
Okay, so tell us, you said it was post-college when you got your first horse, and you, how did you know which direction you wanted to go? And you said you kind of met up with like-minded people, but can you talk a little bit more to that experience and what got you down the path that you are on?
When I got my first horse, she was an off-the-track thoroughbred and basically not restarted, and I hadn't had any formal retraining education at all. So I basically just got on and, we galloped, she jigged and we galloped and we jigged and we galloped. And I was fortunate enough to board her at a facility that was doing natural horsemanship. But at the time, I just really watched everyone, and I really wasn't into giving up my galloping. So to learn it, because it was like a lot of groundwork, and I was like, this looks slower than I want to go right now. But I watched them, and I watched how they communicate with those horses, and it was really, really cool, and I appreciated it. And so eventually, actually, once I got my first job as a barn manager, I started diving into natural horsemanship and started learning that, but not after a full couple of months of just galloping and getting that out of my system, having my first horse and just being like, I need to run for hours.
And so you went from natural horsemanship to colt starting to dressage. Like how did those three, how did that journey come about?
Yeah, just kind of, a little bit flowed, but it was always my intention to kind of get into competition because I really like competing, and I always loved English sports. But when I started learning natural horsemanship, I knew it was going to be a really long process. And so I committed myself to that. And when I got to Wisconsin, I found some people through that avenue that I could start learning eventing and jumping, some local people and some other people that were one of my friends, who's now a friend, is a trainer in Aiken. And I spent some time there, which was really nice. It was awesome. But always kind of returning back to Wisconsin. And then I just ended up, dressage kind of landed in my lap. Honestly, it was like the owner of the horse that I competed, she needed help because her trainer at the time didn't want to sit on the horse because she was young, and the owner had a fall early on, and so they basically just wanted me to kind of survive the rides, and then it just and that's how it kind of came to be, honestly. And then it was like, oh, she could actually ride, and I was like, let's keep going down this road, and it kind of just went from there, and then when I found musical freestyle, I was really into that because that was really fun.
That's the best, in my opinion. I love it because you can really show your horse off. I mean, I like riding dressage, of course, but the tests, you can really change and accentuate your horse and really show them off. So tell us about competition. What did you enjoy? What didn't you like? I know I had a question here How do you balance, training in the arena versus competition? Sometimes people find that difficult.
Yeah. I definitely found it to be challenging. I felt it was pressure. There was a lot of pressure all the time, especially because we were competing often, and with pretty high goals. And so, yeah, it was a tough balance. It was like every week I felt like I was just squeaking by the time we got to competition. So it was like, well, this move isn't quite where I want it to be, but let's cross our fingers. And then by the end of the season, everything kind of comes together a little bit better. But the balance part was challenging because it was always like, well, she needs downtime. We need to go slow. But I really fell in love with the walk, honestly. That really kind of brought me to like, okay, how do we get stuff done but give the horse a break and low impact? And it really taught me that you can really teach a lot, you can communicate a lot, and so I really appreciated that opportunity during that kind of high pressure time to be like, well, I have to sit on you, but how are we going to get something done? You know what I mean? That sounds kind of silly, but if you got a show coming up in 2 weeks, it's like, you got to sit on the horse, So, but I appreciated that. It was a puzzle to figure out, for sure. And I was only competing one horse at the time, so it wasn't like I had 5. And I'm sure that would be a lot harder.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's one horse or 5 horses. I feel like there's a lot of pressure when you're competing a horse for an owner. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And you don't have to go in specifics or anything, but like generalizing, I've competed a lot of horses for owners. Maybe you can touch on like, how do you stay focused when they're like, hey, when are you going to get a 70? When are you going to win because I've actually been asked that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So maybe touch on that, and then we can move on to the Mustangs. I want to hear about Mustangs.
All right, cool. Yeah. No, it's definitely it's a challenge. On one hand, it's helpful to stay on course because I need a little heat myself in order to kind of stay progressive. So it was very helpful that way. And the owner of that horse that I was competing, I've competed other horses in jumping and things like that, but it wasn't as high intensity. And it was kind of a little bit more like, well, let's just do well and have fun, But this was a little bit more serious. We were going for points and end of the year awards and medals and things like that. So we had a good relationship as far as managing the horse. She would listen to my feedback, which was really good as far as like, I think that she needs a rest. But at the end of the day, we were going to the show and we weren't going to scratch any classes, and I knew that. So it was like, at the end of the day, it was really up to me to kind of perform no matter what. So that was challenging because sometimes I'd come back and be really depleted and need to kind of push because we had another show in 2 weeks or whatever. And where I didn't love having to push the horse when I felt like she needed breaks, but we did. And it always like turned out okay, because then the break would come a little bit later or whatever. But yeah, it's a hard balance because, you're dealing with your own head with competing, and then you're dealing with an animal that can't communicate for itself, and you're the one riding it and really know it the best and know how it feels when it feels good and when it doesn't feel good, and when they're trying to communicate that they need something. Or so you're speaking for yourself and the animal, and that's kind of hard when there's a lot of money involved too, a lot of time, a lot of money. So nobody wants to go there and not do well and not perform well, when you're investing a lot of time and money into something. So that's a little sorry.
No, I interrupted you, but that's part of the process. The horse doesn't sign up for the horse show. The horse can have a bad day, and it's okay. But sometimes, I mean, in my case, sometimes for owners, it's not okay. And I have struggled with that. I hope you didn't. But I mean, that is a tough balance that I like to talk about,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because it's unique to the rider. It's unique to the rider who doesn't own the horse. So, Yeah, I agree with that. It is challenging. I wouldn't say it was overly, I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose this job all the time, but it's always in the back of your head, like if I don't do well, maybe a couple times in a row, I'm going to lose this job. And job was real important to me. So kept me working hard. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to try to do it on my own, which has its own challenges, because of money, basically. But I'd like to see how that goes. But I also, like I said, it's nice to have the push, like someone to kind of go along with you and just be like, you know what, you're tired today, or the horse is tired today. I think it's okay to kind of push, and I did find that to be really helpful.
Megan and I keep muting and unmuting. So, okay, so you did a little horsemanship, and colt started, then you did the dressage. So tell us how you kind of got to where you're at, and let's talk all things Mustangs, if you could. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So my life shifted, obviously, when I got pregnant. I actually found out, like, I had an inkling I was pregnant at the last nationals that I was at. And I just had weird symptoms. I was like, it was very cold, as it always is, but I like couldn't breathe. I was like, why am I losing my breath? Just weird stuff. And I was, I just had it in the back of my head the whole time, but I didn't take a pregnancy test till I got home because I didn't want to freak out while I was there. So, but it was, obviously, they came home, found out I was pregnant, and then we kind of, okay, well, now we're going to change things, we're kind of on one trajectory and now we're on another, so it took a little while to kind of figure that out. But I fell back on foundation training again, and we had to figure out how to, be a family, because as you know, when you're competing and you're training 24/7, it's like not 24/7, but it's 12 days or 12 hours a day, most likely 6 days a week. It's pretty intense. It's a lot of time. So it was like, well, that's not really an option anymore, and I can't be gone for 4 to 5 days, for a competition. It's not going to happen. So we kind of shifted, and so the farm that we're renting right now is not really set up very well for horses for training, but we made it what we could, and it's set up pretty well for like colt starting. And so we got back into foundation training, and then it brought me into Mustangs because I've always been really curious about them. But really also what helped me get into Mustangs was that I had a lot of heartbreak with personal horses and client horses that were just coming up lame or having genetic diseases. And there was a time where I just felt like I was surrounded by it, and I was so devastated by it that I kept looking to Mustangs like, well, maybe nature is doing a better job of breeding, and like maybe there's some good qualities here, and watching the people who are doing it, and also just kind of set up for doing it at home. So I was like, well, let's give this a whirl,
And so with the Mustangs, are you doing like a Mustang makeover? Are you buying them? Are they clients' horses? Like how did they come to you?
At first I was really interested in doing there's a Mustang Classic, which is just English discipline, and that's jumping and dressage, and and then a freestyle. And I'd love to do that, but it's a timing thing, and I'm not quite ready yet with Ren being so little and everything. So once he goes into daycare, I'm going to have a little bit more time to maybe pursue something like that, which I'd be excited to do for sure. But right now they're just personal horses, because the other thing is that when I started training at home, I did some outside training horses, and that was great. But I also just really needed to return to myself. Like I just felt like so many years I've been under pressure, and training horses for other people was I just kind of felt like I had lost my connection, to what was really important to me. And so the the Mustangs I've had so far have just been personal horses, which has been really, really nice. So I can run on my own timeline. I can just give them all the time that they need. And they're really cheap, so I don't have to worry about it being like high cost and then have all this pressure of having to resell, and then we have our own place so that we have our own hay and things like that. So it just works for right now to operate that way. But I've had a bunch of people interested in being like, let's get a Mustang, and then I would help them pick one out and go through the BLM auction and, bring them home and help them with the friendlying process, which is the hardest process. Once you get them past the first 3 or 4 months, and then they're just a horse, it's not a Mustang, like as far as difficulty training, I think, but those first couple of months can be not something that you want to mess up.
For anyone who's watching that may not know what BLM is, can you discuss what that is, what the auction is, and then what is your first 4 months? Like, if you've never had a horse, should you go out and buy a Mustang that's never been started? Like maybe discuss some of that as well.
Okay. Yeah. BLM stands. What's that?
Mumsy actually asked the same question I did. Are Mustangs?
Oh, nice. I missed it. Nice. Are Mustangs for everyone? I like that a lot. BLM, remind me of that if I forget, but BLM stands for Bureau of Land Management, which is a government-run organization. And basically what's happening now is that they're rounding up wild horses in North America, and then putting them into holding facilities, and then running auctions. They'll do live auctions, but then also do online auctions. Currently, there are 75,000 horses in holding facilities, which is a lot of horses. And then they manage wild herds as well, so they just keep an eye on the herds that are existing. And so it's a lot of horses. So
can we talk about that? Like you mentioned online auctions, and then is there a way to go in person? Can we talk a little bit about that? That's really interesting. And my gosh, I had no idea. 75,000. I had no idea.
Isn't that incredible?
Idea that number was that large. So that's wild. But for any of our viewers who are really interested in maybe getting a Mustang, it sounds like there's a couple different ways. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. You have to you can go onto the BLM's website and see where local auctions are. Like we have one every year in Wisconsin, and then there's a few in Illinois. And then so you don't have to drive all the way out west to kind of get to ones. But if you did, that's where a large number of horses are. I've not done that, so I can't speak of it personally. But the online auctions are really neat because you can kind of put in your age range and your height range, and then they have a little profile picture for each one, and then they have a little clip of movement, and you can watch a little bit about their personality and look for soundness and conformation and things like that. It's pretty short clips to kind of go off of, but you get a good sense of them, I think, for the most part. And this last time I just bought two, or adopted one, bought one. And, I looked at over 1,000 horses in the age range that I wanted to look at. For that auction. And it was really cool. Like it was fun to do, and then narrow it down to like 20, and then narrow it down to 10. And then you've got the auction, which lasts a week. So then you can bid on your horse, and then, you might have you might get outbid at the last minute. So it's a little bit exciting, but, I got both my horses. Nobody bid on them. So I got them outright.
Were you happy with them? The ones that you bid on?
Yeah. It was interesting because I actually bought 2 3-year-old geldings, and then I went to the holding facility in Illinois to pick them up, and one was really sick and very scrawny, even smaller than I thought. And I was like, oh man, that's going to be a little bit tough, and then they had said, well, you could trade them out. And I was like, really? That's interesting. I had no idea that that could even be a thing. So they're like, yeah, we have all these mares over here that are available, and, you know, they can live in the holding facilities their whole life as of now, as long as the BLM has funding. But, you know, it's not like a terrible place. So it was like, it felt like, oh, okay, well, that's not a big deal. I didn't feel like, oh, my heart was committed to that little guy. So I was like, well, maybe he needs to grow up a little bit and he'll be in better shape. And so then I looked at the mares in the pen, which was nice because I could see them live, you know, see them interacting with each other. And just for example, like I saw one that was really pretty, and I was like, oh, she's nice. She's got nice conformation. And but then she was a dominant mare, and I was like, oh, I'm not ready for a dominant mare yet, you know, like, so I passed on that idea. But I picked up a really pretty Cremello mare, 8 years old. Yeah, and so ended up kind of switching last minute, and that was kind of cool. It was kind of a cool experience. I didn't even know that was a thing that you could do, so it was cool.
So this is kind of a side question, where in Illinois is the holding facility? Like, it's interesting because obviously Megan and I and you are in Wisconsin. Illinois is not a far drive.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking extreme southern Illinois, and then it's maybe an 8-hour drive. But
yeah, it was far. It was more on the southern end. It was like Eldwig, something like that. I'm blanking on completely the name of that town, like Elgin or Elwig or something like that. And then I know that there's one more in northern Illinois as well. But and I also wanted to mention too that the first Mustang that I bought was from Saruna Brooding from northern Wisconsin, and she's doing a lot of really good work. She's picking up a lot of Mustangs and getting them started, getting them friendlied, and then putting them out into the world. And she gives them a really, really good start. So if anybody's interested in her, her website is Good Homes for Good Horses. So I just wanted to give her a shout out because I got my first Mustang from her because we didn't have the facility to get them, because that's the other thing. You need to have 6-foot fencing. It needs to be very safe because they can jump, you know, and they could hurt themselves in a panic. And so at first we weren't set up for that. So and now we are, which is nice. But so the other question that you had, are Mustangs for everyone? It really depends, right? But so my 3-year-old that I got, I mean, he is just a dream to work with. He's so easygoing. It was like, he was really curious in his video, and I was really hoping that was going to be his personality, and it is. And he's sweet, and he's trusting, and he's easy. I can pick up all 4 feet just at liberty, like, and you know, brush him all over. He loves it. You know, took the saddle, no problem. Like, he's just a really, really easygoing guy. The mare that I got is going to be maybe my horse, and I'll never be put apart with her because she's so sensitive. But that's what I figured as an 8-year-old mare, but I wasn't sure, you know. But so I'm learning a lot about her. So yeah, it really depends. Some of them are just really, really nice. And the last gelding that I had, he was also the same. I mean, I think that he could have taken a lot of different people, a lot of different riders. He could have done a lot of different disciplines, which was so awesome because honestly, up until that point, all the horses that I really had and sold were kind of difficult. Like, in a lot of ways, I really had to try hard to find them the right owners. And so I was like, oh, how refreshing to have a horse that's like easygoing, could go to almost anybody, you know. And I feel like Ziggy, the 3-year-old, is going to be that way too. But I might keep him because he's a little bit he could be an eventer, maybe a low-level eventer.
How long have you had him?
I got him in June.
Just a couple months.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So so you had the question about how that looks in the first couple of months. The first month, basically just kind of letting them settle in, just feeding them because they're not used to getting any type of grain or anything. That takes a little bit, but then they're like little hungry hippos. So they have not turned their noses up at anything. I put weird herbs in there and everything. They're just like, whatever. So the guy at the holding facility was like, oh, you might have a hard time with them. I'm like, they eat really well. So then he came in with a little bit of a snotty nose and a cough. And so I was giving him some time to kind of just get better. And by the time I had the vet out, had him haltered and ready to see a vet, we had decided to give him another week and it cleared up. So luckily we didn't have to do any antibiotics or anything. But so just kind of check them out that way. Their feet seem to be in a little bit rough condition and things like that, depending on how long they're sitting and holding, because they're not moving around, and they're just sitting on round bales of alfalfa. So their feet are suffering a little bit, but they come out healthy. So yeah, just taking the time the first month and then start to kind of push a little bit to start getting halter on and things like that. And then I go extra slow on my own, especially in the middle of summer. I didn't have like the pressure of winter coming or anything like that. So it was nice to just let him get friendly. And every day I just pushed the envelope a little bit with him and did most working at Liberty and then starting to work on getting them to yield to the halter and things like that. But was pretty careful about it because they can, pull and run away pretty quick. And then once you got that going, you're dealing with it for a while. So trying to avoid that. But yeah, so first couple of months, and now like I find that if you just go really, really slow, gain the trust, then the ball starts rolling and everything else is easy. So like now I expect that where he's at, he's really trusting me. And when I go to lay over him the first time, I really don't think it's going to be an issue. And, so that's the slow road is the fast road. And sometimes it depends on the horse, how slow that initial road is. But
my question is, when do you think you'll be sitting over or laying over his back and sitting on him? And then we also do have another question from Mumsy.
Oh, yay.
on cost of, is it $10 for a bid? Is it $1,000 for a bid? So I don't want to forget her question.
Oh yeah, let me start there. So the starting bid is $125 for an adoption, and I believe the adoption is like age 5 years old and under, and then it can go from there. Then you can place a bid at $126. You know what I mean? It can be at dollar increments, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So it's I got Ziggy for $125. And then if you want to buy a horse that's 5 years old or older, it's $50. So I bought Monet, the mare, for $50. I know, I was like dumbfounded. The BLM actually gave me a refund of money when I decided to pass on the other 3-year-old and take the 8-year-old. So I was like, wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
Is there a restriction there? I know there used to be, but this was, decades ago. That because the concern is that somebody's going to go, adopt or buy 10 and then turn them around and sell them in an auction to a bad buyer, we call that. And so, isn't there a restriction on that?
Yeah, that's I don't know why they don't do it for the over 5-year-olds, but the under 5-year-olds, the BLM actually owns for 1 whole year. So it's like called titling. And so I actually adopted him. BLM owns him. And I think that's why, to protect that, from happening, especially for the young ones. I'm not sure why for the young ones and not for the older ones. But Monet I just own, so they don't have any ties to her anymore.
So do they come, what kind of like veterinarian paperwork? Because obviously if you're crossing state lines, you're going to need the Coggins, you're going to need a health certificate. Obviously, I don't think we have wild horses in Illinois except in these holding facilities. So obviously they were crossing lines to come. So what kind of health paperwork do they come with? Or do you have to arrange that when you adopt or purchase?
They do. They give you a health cert. I don't know. I mean, they're not doing temps. So, like nobody's getting a temp on a Mustang at this point. So, yeah. and they do a coggin. So they have a series of shoots that they work with, and then, they put them in there and they give them shots, and they have, they check their teeth and for the age and everything else like that. I'm not sure what they actually accomplish. They say they do some feet trimming. I haven't seen it done. I don't know what that looks like, but yeah, they do give you a health cert. But that makes me curious, though, because that one little guy was obviously really sick. And Ziggy, I didn't really notice he had a runny nose until he really got home, and he was coughing. So, they were in quarantine when they got home, obviously, because I'm not putting them out with other horses or anything like that. But it's probably a safe idea to have that set up if you did adopt one, just in case.
So how, the place that you went to adopt these guys, the holding facility, how many horses from the BLM are there? Is there 300? Is there 100? Are there 1,000? I don't know idea how big.
Yeah, it depends on the facility. That one in particular, it said it could hold 250 to 300 horses. Some of those horses will live there for their whole lives, again, as long as they have the funding. Yeah. They had a huge shed. So everyone had shelter, and they had large areas, with herds could be in. And they actually had some turnout, which I was really so happy to see, which is really, really neat, because their fences were pretty solid. So they did do rotational turnout with those horses, which was really cool. I know, I was impressed. Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Sorry, Megan, go ahead.
No, go ahead. So what are your goals with your Mustangs? Are your goal to train them and resell them and then start again, or keeping them, make them into show horses, lesson horses?
Yeah. I would really like to get into competition again, and it would be really cool to do that with some Mustangs. So I'm really hoping to do that with the two that I have right now, because I think Monet is well suited for dressage, if she would let me get on her back ever, if she graces me with that. But she's really Spanishy, and she looks like a dressage horse, and I dream about doing musical freestyles with her again. And how cool would it be if I could get some medals with her? It'd be really neat. And yeah, same with Ziggy. I haven't done eventing in years, and I would really have only done some coaching of other people in eventing, and I love it. And it would be super fun to represent with him, and eventually maybe sell, but we'll see. If Ziggy doesn't like eventing, then he doesn't have to be an eventer. He can move on. But same with Monet. But that would be a really awesome goal. I'd love to do that.
I think of Mustangs, and of course, I think everybody's mind comes to, these horses roaming out west in the Great Plains states, and they're probably used to being out and seeing things in the wild. But then you talk about the fact some of these horses are quite young, so yeah, maybe they were briefly out in the wild, but maybe they haven't quite as worldly a thoughts as you thought. Maybe they haven't been out seeing the mountains of Montana or Wyoming or wherever.
Yeah, no, that's a good, yeah, it really does depend. And you know the answer to that question when you adopt or you buy, which is really cool, because they tell you when they were captured, and so you can have an inkling if they did grow up in the wild or not, and you know where they came from. So Ziggy came from Montana. It kind of looks like a horse that came from Montana, and Monet came from California, and same, she's a little bit more refined, and he's pretty sturdy looking. And so it's interesting, you think about that and how they developed in the environment how they adapted to that environment. But yeah, I have those questions too. A lot of people kind of pick up the horses that were born in holding, because they're really friendly, they weren't wild at all, but then they missed that opportunity to kind of grow up in the wild and have those experiences, which I think is really the cool part about it.
So Linda kind of threw out some questions here, is there a way to know their history? You said that you need, one was from Montana, one was, California. Do they kind of know any of the history? You always hear about the Spanish influence, but now it's kind of well, are these just some ranch horses that escaped, or you know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
What do they know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was surprised to learn that the BLM actually has been keeping a genetic record for quite some time on the horses that they bring in. So they actually do know quite a bit. I was really surprised to find that out because they know, people have questions about inbreeding and things like that too. And so I just recently looked that up because somebody had kind of mentioned that, and I was like, I don't think so, but let me check, and they had stated that through their record keeping, that it's very rare actually. So that was good to find out. Sorry, what was the other parts of those questions? I kind of blanked there.
Oh, just, yeah. I mean, I think you kind of got into it, how do we know, were they, long descendants of the Spaniards when they came to settle, the New World, or, you hear about people's horses getting turned loose, and people can't. I mean, you even hear about it in Illinois, like them finding some horse somebody abandoned in some state park or something, which is really sad. But I could see that out west, like somebody's ranch horses getting loose and disappearing from the ranches, and the ranchers can't find them. I don't know.
Yeah. I've read both, on purpose and on accident. I think years ago when we were really still using horses for ranch work, they would release a stallion out and just put better genetics in for cows, and so then they just go round up those Mustangs and bring them in, but so there's a rich history there and a lot of diversity. And there are people who really know a lot more about the regions and the breeds that are in those regions. And I'm not as familiar with it, but DNA tests have shown some pretty wild stuff in these guys. So it's pretty fun.
Well, we had the fortunate ability we talked to a wonderful lady who has written some books about the author who wrote the Mystery Chincoteague series, and has gone over Susan, and has gone over to the pony penning and the Roundup Week and all that. And obviously those are different wild horses. Those are managed by that fire department on Oxford, or Chincoteague.
It's also a very closed environment.
It is. It's very tight, and it's interesting to hear the history on that. The islands got hit, and I can't remember how long ago it was, and a lot of the ponies died, and so the rebuilding was, they selected certain genetics to turn back out with the surviving ponies. I think there were some Arabians and things that they put back into it. So it's really interesting. I'm just still like thinking back to what you said earlier, that there's like 75,000 Mustangs in holding. That's, people don't know that. I don't think people know that. I had no idea. Megan, did you have any idea the number? That's amazing. And the fact, kind of just makes you go, wow, if you were a really good colt starter, such as yourself, to be able to, honestly, I would consider it like rescuing, because people are always looking for really good, big horses. And that's the thing, is you're going to have that hopeful intuition of identifying horses, like you're talking about how kind and sweet your gelding is, is this horse going to be something like gentle then turned into a really great, maybe trail horse, or something fun for somebody, for a fun event horse.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a question. What is your vision for your business and your farm? Because it sounded like you were developing your farm. Maybe you could talk on that, and maybe Farm Besties could come for a tour sometime when you're ready. Just to discuss, like, how do you prep a farm for a Mustang? And then my other question was bridging the gap between natural and traditional solid foundation. So we wanted to touch on that as well, so it can kind of bleed into that.
Cool. For the future, we're unsure. We're unsure at the moment. Honestly, we just found out that the farm that we're leasing is going up for sale, which is okay. It's okay for us because this wasn't checking all the boxes for us anyway. It was a good place to get started. So we're actually going to be looking, for what's the next thing. And you had mentioned, Stephanie, that, this horse maybe would turn into a good trail horse or whatever. And that's the other thing beyond the soundness issues and things like that I was really discouraged about, is that people are overhorsed all the time, and it's like, it doesn't really need good horses. We might want a Ferrari, but we need like the solid SUV or whatever, so and that was also a part of my mission, as far as like, I just really want to get people some nice, safe horses that are versatile and can do a lot of things that you can have fun with, that you're not afraid to take on a trail ride, things like that. So that was part of it too. And I do really enjoy them. So I really want to continue with them. It would be about, if the facility is right, to do that, and to be efficient at it. I've learned a lot about efficiency and safety for them and safety for us. Like, pen's too big, too small, footing's not good enough, fencing's okay, or we need better, so so for what's ideal is in Wisconsin is going to be a base with some sand in it, really. Like a big round pen would really be ideal for a holding facility that you could actually be able to set panels in and then move them around, so that you can maybe have a round pen or make a individual pen, or keep them together. And so just have some variety within that. Like right now we have a quite large rectangle pen, but the footing isn't stellar, and I don't love that, because for the mare right now, if she gets nervous, I really want her to have secure footing. So we've moved them into the indoor, and that's better for them, safety wise and things like that. So just getting those things hatched out, being able to have like chutes everywhere, just a bazillion panels, having a lot of panels. And we have 5-foot panels, but then we put that flexible heavy duty tape. Have you seen that? It's like about a foot wide, and then it's really safe and secure around the top to make it 6 foot. So we didn't have 6-foot panels. But then kind of, yeah, does that satisfy that question? I'm sorry, I want to make sure that I'm...
Yeah, we did have somebody ask, talking about the fencing. Like, yeah, I mean, can you comment more on that? What have you seen? Because like, that's a tall fence. So I'm in my brain, I'm thinking of like what somebody would enclose a stallion in. Like, I'm thinking of like,
probably,
really tall stallion fencing or something. Like, what do they need? Does it have to be solid? Does it just have to be, I mean, what's safe for, like, does it have to be metal pipe, or is there any real ways you should go? I mean, I use a lot of electric tape. I think Megan does too.
Mm-hmm.
That probably wouldn't deter a motivated Mustang, right?
No. Well, the problem is when they press on something, so they're used to the metal panels. Mostly, I think you see that in the videos, the online auctions, they're pretty solid panels, and then they're reinforced so they don't move, so that if they do shoulder into them to test it, like, it's not going anywhere. So the problem with, tape or something like that is if they did go to test it and they succeeded, then now that's the answer, and they're going to blow through fences, and then you have a pretty big problem on your hands. But so they're used to that, the metal fencing, and that's what they had majority at the holding facility that I went to as well. And so that's what we used. And but I do think that you could kind of use some other materials. I don't even know if I would 100% trust wood planks either, honestly. Like, it really depends on how panicked they can be initially. It's like when you bring them home and they're in a new environment, they don't know anything yet, and they will think about climbing out of a 5-foot fence. So that's why it has to be 6 foot, and so they will hurt themselves in an attempt to kind of flee. So you just really want to make sure it's very secure. So I'd say metal. I don't even know about wood and I wouldn't trust it, honestly. And then there's a transitional period. So I just run electric wire inside when they're ready to kind of start learning about electric fence, and then that worked fine, you know. And then have a clear system of kind of like, okay, now we're moving into another paddock that has electric fence, but maybe a perimeter fence, you know, something pretty safe. But I didn't find that they're testing at all. You know, it's like once they're secure, they know where home is. They're not in a full panic about human beings being around and things like that. They're with the program, then they can start thinking more clearly and not trying to test fence because they're trying to escape, you know.
Do they get much interaction when they're in the BLM facilities with humans, or is it basically like a skid loader drives the round bales out to the pen and they don't really see humans much? Like,
I'm not 100% sure about that, but just through my own personal experience, like I was surprised to see the handlers on the ground with them, and they were working in pretty small chutes, and the humans weren't like afraid of them at all. The horses moved away from them, you know, and they utilized kind of sticks with bags on them and stuff like that. So they're getting scurried around. And as far as, you know, in the large holding facilities, I'm sure it's probably a lot of machines, honestly, because it's a lot of horses to feed. I'm sure they're operating off round bales and stuff like that, but I'm making assumptions too, so I'm not sure.
And I know we wanted to talk about bridging the gap between natural horsemanship and traditional training. Do you want to discuss how you want to bridge that gap?
Sure. Yeah, it's something that I've always felt really passionate about, because it always felt like there was such a huge gap between the two worlds, especially for a long time. It seems to be becoming more popular now, so there's so many more programs to follow of people who are doing traditional horsemanship and promoting natural ways, you know. So that seems to be helping a lot. But I always felt like primarily what was missing in the traditional world was more of just a solid foundation in the beginning, like there's an elementary school before the elementary school, you know, like a lot of horses are missing kindergarten, you know, as far as like introduction to all things human world, and also understanding every yield really, really clearly as a singular, not as a combination, as far as like, so being specific about that, just like the one rein, one leg. And I find a lot of horses are maybe a little bit confused about that at times when I'm retraining or doing something like that. And that's always where I go, you know, it's just always like, let's just be clear. This one leg always means to yield this way, and never means to go forward or ignore or push back into, things like that. So it's just like really, really basic, really, really clear. But I find that once that's established, then it's like, oh, okay, now we're off and running, and now we can kind of put things together and start having some fun, you know, let's do some leg yields and things like that or whatever. But so that in combination with just more of a focus of confidence building, a little bit more understanding of how the horse thinks initially too, I think really would help. So just thinking about, one story kind of comes to mind of the horse that I was competing pretty seriously. There was just, it had rained at Silverwood, and so there was just lakes everywhere, like in the parking lot and on your way to the arena. I'm sure you've experienced that. Yeah. And the horse was really afraid to cross the water. And so instead of kind of going, well, you know, we won't deal with that, I really wanted to, this is a language building, a confidence building opportunity. Like, I want to spend time here and like really talk to her about this, because it does translate to how she feels about me as far as my leadership when we go down center line, because that's scary, you know, it's always scary. Your human turns into a little bit of a different person, and then also you're all of a sudden alone, you know. And so you really need them to trust us as much as possible and all things like that. So for me, sort of obstacles, the cat came to say hi, obstacles and things like that are opportunities to kind of just build that trust, build the language, let her know that I wasn't going to push her through it, but we were going to deal with it, and so I think maybe that's a little bit of a difference. I don't know, maybe you can tell me if you feel like that might be true or not, as far as like, well, I don't have time to deal with that. Like I've got to I got to get ready for this competition tomorrow, versus like my mentality was like, I gotta deal with this puddle. I gotta get ready for this competition tomorrow. Like it felt really important to me.
I think that's more important. I mean, every moment is an opportunity to show your leadership and trust to a horse. It doesn't matter what it is. And that's the unfortunate thing about being a competitor and a trainer. Yes, you do have these pressures to get the horse ready for the competition, but at the end of the day, it's our responsibility at whatever level, whether it's a tarp, a banner. Oh my God, those banners at Lamplight. I almost took out 4 people. I was riding a Frisian. She saw a banner, jumped over the white little fence, and took out like 3 people. I mean,
oh my gosh.
And at the end of the day, I mean, we're going to have to be there tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And same way with the puddle. I mean, when's it going to rain? We're in Wisconsin. No, sure. You have to take that moment and work them through it. And it's a leadership. I think of it as a moment. I know some people don't, and they get frustrated. And I understand that too, because you're like, I've been working with this horse. It's 13 years old. Why doesn't it know it's just being a horse?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's understanding the mind of the horse, and really good trainers are natural, they don't need the distinction, it's like, you understand, you get it because you understand the horse, right? But for the average person, they need to learn from that starting point of like, okay, this is how horses think. They're not out to get you. They're just being a horse. They're afraid of everything, literally everything. So it's our responsibility to help them with that. And if we want to take them off property to show them more scary things, then you better be prepared for all of that too, So yeah, totally. It's just a way of life,
Totally. And sometimes I think in the past, my clients have thought, horses were like a Mercedes, you put it in drive, it goes. But I've also been treated that way. You're the trainer. I want the 70, and I think that's the line between horsemanship and horsewomen. And we all get involved in horses for various reasons. And I think for me, it's the obligation of educating everybody. That's why we're here, right, Steph? Is to show what it's like to be a trainer, what your thoughts are on natural horsemanship. And competition for me is just fun. I love it. And at the end of the day, though, I mean, am I going to base my training on my horse spooking at the cat at Silverwood at the end of the arena? The horse is just being a horse and protecting us.
Right, for sure. Like, Megan, did you see that cat? Oh my gosh.
No, I missed it. Let's go to Ed. No, totally. So I totally agree with you. And at the end of the day, it comes down to my horse and my relationship. So I agree with you. And we also talked about, I really want to get into, before you have to vaporize and take care of your son, I want to talk about management of grazing and how it works with horses. You had mentioned that in your message to me. Teach us something. Tell us something about it, because I was like, I feel like I'm lacking. I want to know what you know.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough subject, but since we've been at this farm, we've been able to experiment with it, which has been really nice to have that opportunity. My partner is an ecologist and botanist, basically, and really into managed grazing and regenerative agriculture, and he really pushed me to try it with the horses. I was really scared to do it, actually, because I had a navicular horse, another horse that was kind of metabolic, and things like that. And we had so many questions about health of grass and sugars and things like that, time of day, you know, like at first it was like, oh my God, you know, what's the temperature today? When did it rain? Okay, let's, you know, like how tall is the grass, you know, and I've just recently gotten a lot more relaxed with it, but it really does, what it really requires is a lot of land and less horses, which is the hardest piece for horse owners, especially in Wisconsin, because we just don't have that much horse to land ratio. But basically, in a nutshell, we're looking at grazing. Like our pastures are much healthier now, so I trust that the horses are healthier. And what that means to me is that the grass is tall. There's a little bit more diversity in tall. I mean, over 8 inches. And then the minerals are better, things like that. So we're not dealing with so much fluctuation in the sugar depending on light, temperature, rainfall, things like that, which are obviously all things that we were about with colic and founder and laminitis. So what we are currently doing is we move the horses about once a week or maybe every 5 days. At first we were doing it like every 3 days, and it was driving me nuts because it's a lot to do. We move a lot of fence. We have a perimeter fence, and then you move the interior fence, you know, and at first, my partner Jeremy was really trying to, we got to keep them in small areas and move them more often. And then we finally settled on longer pieces of land so that they can move more and they're much happier. And then we move them less, which is a lot easier. So we've kind of have gotten a better system with that. And so far, I think I'll pull them off when we get a hard freeze for a week or two. But other than that, I've had 2 horses that are just on there year round this year, and they're doing fantastic. So, and my navicular horses, and not that this is a big part of it, but I do think a part of it is movement and all of that. But my navicular horse is barefoot, and with a really good barefoot trimmer, he seems to be doing better than all the different types of shoes that I tried and everything else. So I'm loving it. They're really happy. They don't get stressed about the moving at all. And I'm really excited to try it with the Mustangs, but unfortunately I don't know if we'll land in another place that we have this much land to horse ratio.
I have a question, and this is another pivot. On the Mustangs, since we did talk a lot about them, and you know, people might have their curiosity piqued now, saying, "Wow, I can adopt, you know, Mustang for $50 to $125." Can we talk about again, like the immediate needs for the immediate adoption? What kind of facility they need to go into? You definitely talked about it, but I want to circle back to that. And then, like, what can people expect to need to be able to do to, I don't know, we want to say gentle pain these Mustangs, let's say in their first 3 to 6 months? Like, what are realistic expectations that people need to like understand whether or not this is even a good idea for them?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a loaded, long question, but touch on what you can.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So again, when you fill out an application for the BLM, they try to do a pretty good job of making sure you understand what you need to have at home in order to be able to. And they do ask for veterinary references and things like that. I don't know if they actually check them. They probably don't because it's too many. But if they need to, they will. Or if they have, you know, you adopt a few horses, they might do it. But they make sure that you have a shelter and the fencing is secure, that you understand what type of fencing that you need to have, but how high it needs to be, the 6 foot. And then you need to come with a stock trailer, so no other type of trailer will be suitable. And so those are kind of the requirements. Other than that, they don't really tell you. There's no requirement as far as like, are you a horse trainer? Do you have a friend who is a horse trainer? You know what I mean? Like something like that. What are the dangers? You know, I think there's some information about that, but you're kind of you're a little bit on your own there, I think. Definitely a healthy knowledge of natural horsemanship is really, really good. I mean, there's so many options these days. So, you know, pick an online program and start studying it. Also, the type of horse that you end up with is really, really gonna make or break it. But I think in general, like I said, the beginning part is pretty can be really challenging depending on the horse. So you really don't want to get hurt doing it or hurt the horse while you're doing it too. So, but the more educated you are about that process, then the better. And there's plenty of people on YouTube sharing a lot of information about that as well. But your best case scenario would be to have a trusted trainer with you, during that process. So you're not doing it by yourself.
Sorry, I had to go to unmute. Do they come haltered? Do they come unhaltered? Anything? Because I think, again, people may not really understand this.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Because a lot of people have kind of asked me, like, oh, are you doing such and such? I was like, no, they know nothing. So it's like, it really is like each little step is really a process, Some of the holding facilities will halter them for you, which is cool, so you could start off with a halter, which is an advantage for sure.
What kind of halter? Can I quick ask that? What do they put on them? Do you bring it? What do they recommend?
I am actually not sure because I haven't had that option. But I like, in my mind, I feel like I've seen through other people's videos of rope halter, which I would be surprised at because that's so dangerous. Like I've left breakaways on them initially because it's such a, that initial haltering is like, you don't want to repeat it every day, honestly. Once you get it on, then you make some steps and then you can go back to taking it off and being able to put it back on reliably again, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure about that.
Okay, I'm going to pivot now. How do you balance your life? Like, how do you have a relationship? How do you have a child and have a training business? How do you do all that? And how was that transition for when you're like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Now my entire life is going to change.
Good question. So I'll work backwards. It's a process. I'm lucky I have a good partner. We talk about it a lot. We've really prioritized Ren and his early development. So, like I said, I know I can work 12 hours a day and be really happy about it. So I had to really do a lot less. And so I teach at night just 3 days a week mostly, and like I take Saturdays. I work all day Saturdays, but 2 days a week are just evenings. And so then Jeremy and we take turns. If I didn't have horses at home and I was boarding them somewhere else, it would be really, really challenging. So that was really initial conversation in the beginning, as far as the only way this really works is if I have horses at home, because I can't live without them. And but if they're somewhere else, I'm going to be tempted to be somewhere else too much, and so for now, that's how it works. It works because they're here and I can be here. And for a while, full disclosure, I'm training horses at nap time, with the monitor and stuff. So that's like that brought itself into like a whole new level of like weird stress, that was like, oh man, I'm just like really not a good quitting point here. Sorry, Ren, no, I'd always prioritize him, and the horse would come second. But yeah, so we tried all sorts of stuff,
And how old is he? Does he like horses?
Yeah, he's 2.5, and he's showing interest in horses for sure. He's got a couple toys that he likes, and he helps me with chores, which is nice. He's in charge of water, and he likes to scoop some poop sometimes, so that's good. Get him started early, you know what I mean? You had asked too about that initial transition going from, competing and then getting pregnant. It was pretty hard, to be honest. I had a hard time with it. I had really waited a long time for that opportunity and was pretty attached to it. So it was hard for me to let that go. But we made it work, and I had to learn that I was going to survive if I didn't ride all day, but I wasn't sure. I was going to at first, so, I was like, I need to be riding, I need to ride every day. And I was so afraid to lose my skills and, you know, because it really is a lot of upkeep, you know. It's like you don't ride for 2 weeks and you really feel it. So, but I've since calmed down with all that and realized that, you know, when the time comes, we'll be able to get back to it more, and it'll come back, and with a new sense of probably feel and purpose and calmer sense in my mind, you know. So, and that'll probably happen actually next year. So I'll have more time to kind of get back and doing it more seriously.
You haven't lost anything, have you? Did you feel like you did coming back?
No, I think it's mostly in my head. You know, it's like, you know, the fitness leaves you, you know, the fitness leaves you. And it's a little scary because you work so hard to achieve it, you know. But no, I haven't lost any of the knowledge or anything like that. I mean, I'll go back to colt starting. Well, let's get Mustang. You know, like that was my response, you know, like, I'm going to lose my skills, and let's see how much I can challenge myself in another way, you know. So, but that's just me a little bit like at my age too, because I'm 43 and I had a baby, you know, at 40, and so that was an interesting time period to have a baby for my body. My body is kind of like, what happened? You know, what would we just do? You know? And I was a little bit concerned about my rebound, you know, like if I was 30, I'd rebound, you know, no problem, you know. But I was like, am I going to lose my balance? You know, what's going to happen? But it's fine. Everything's fine. It's just panicking.
Well, is there any other topics that we've missed? My last question for you is like, is there any other advice you would like to give to the next generation of horse trainers?
Oh, that's a good question. I think now, you know, if you want to become a horse trainer, one, you might want to have a side gig, you know, just because financially it's so hard. And when you're stressed financially and you make horses your living, it's very, very challenging. So, if you want to do it, maybe do it on the side unless things change, you know, but, or your partner makes a ton of money or something, I don't know. But, the other thing is that I do think there's so much information available now, so you can really educate yourself all day long. And in some ways that's probably hard because it's hard to sift through it and see how it all works together. Cause I feel like a lot of it really does. You know, like most of the people that have different programs, it's like, oh, you can see the similarities, and just understanding that it really is an art form. So each person, each individual really makes it their own. And that doesn't mean that somebody else's way is wrong. So really learn from as many people as possible and be open, because everyone has something to offer. And whatever discipline that is, and whatever horse breed that is. And, you know, don't be closed to an experience because you think it's not what, you know, is appropriate or whatever. Oh, I don't do groundwork, or I don't ride in a double bridle, or I don't, you know, it can be all over the place, or I don't see value in riding a ranch horse or something like that. Like there's so much to learn from so many different disciplines and people. I mean, there's a few maybe you should avoid, but I'm not going to say anything about that. If it's not doing harm to the horse, and you can usually see that, then, you know, try and take from it what you can.
Steph, you were going to say something?
You still find a horse to go out and take a long gallop with?
Oh, I just sold him.
Oh.
Yeah, I was so excited though. Like nothing makes my heart happier than just going for a cruise, you know. But but hoping to get back to it, you know. That's the thing about starting horses. It's like you're always starting over, you know. And I really want to at least keep one of these Mustangs for my own, so that I have a horse that I can develop for a long period of time, because I really miss that.
I totally agree. I always try to have one horse that's mine because all the horses I own, I usually teach lessons on, and it's like, no, this one's mine, my little hard horse. But I love that. I totally agree with you. Everyone offers us new opportunities to learn. So thank you for that advice. And it looks like we have a question. Thank you for having Maureen on the podcast. This has been fascinating. She is a sensational horsewoman through and through. So thank you for your time, Maureen. We really appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to me. It was really fun.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time. This is fascinating. And honestly, I don't know about Megan, but this has kind of woken me up to like the plight of America's wild horses. And
good. I'm glad, because they need help. The horses need help. They really do.
Does the BLM take like donations, or is it strictly like it's federal? So
I'm not sure
what it is, or
there are a lot of groups who are really, and I can't really list them for you, but if you just Google search it, I'm sure you can find a place to put money to help. I don't think it's the BLM, but I'm not sure about that.
There's got to be some groups. I'm sure that because there's like the Mustang. What's it called, Megan? The Mustang Challenge, right?
There's multiple. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think our friend Jessica Davis rode in it multiple years. So I want to see you in it, Maureen.
I would love to. Yeah, I hope I get to represent in the next couple of years for sure.
That'd be awesome.
I think you will. I'll be rooting for you. Barn Besties will be rooting for you.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah.
Got another comment here. Maureen Rock, thanks for having her on the podcast. So lots of people saying hello, and we really appreciate y'all coming on and watching. And
thank you for watching.
Yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, we appreciate your time. We know, like you've mentioned many times here, you got a young family, so we really do appreciate your time tonight. Is there like social media, website, anywhere that you want us to share? In the description on the live here, because this, just so people know, this will be saved on the Barn Besties YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it at any time, share it with friends. So is there would you like us to promote you out with some socials? You want to share those at all? Got anything?
Just Facebook and Instagram right now. I'll be putting together an official website in the near future, but once we figure out where we're landing next, and that's something I've been thinking about for a long time. I've just been surviving on not having one miraculously, but but I'd like to organize some information officially and get one going.
Well, great. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks everybody for watching. Please do make sure you hit the subscribe. We would very much appreciate it. I think Megan and I are super thrilled. This past weekend, we hit the 2,000 subscriber mark, right, Miss Megan?
Oh my God!
Oh, we are so thankful. We really appreciate the support. As Megan mentioned earlier in the live, the whole Barn Besties thing is, sharing stuff exactly like tonight, educational information, being a resource for people, whether they're, like Megan mentioned, are they building a barn? Are they renovating? Did they buy a barn, a farm that had an old barn they needed to renovate? Did they buy a piece of land that they don't even, it's just land, and they're like, I don't know how to lay out a farm. What do I do first? People, always looking for ideas, and it comes from people such as yourself. So again, we really appreciate it. And this will be, of course, saved on our YouTube, right, Miss Meggers?
That's right. Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Have a great night. Anything else you want to share, Maureen, before I say we're going to end?
I think that's all. My brain is...
It's been a little bit more than an hour. So thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you
for everybody.